Hi guys, welcome to Strength Reversed. My name is Amy. Thank you for joining me today. I have an awesome hashtag today. It is hashtag the reader I am. I saw it yesterday on Saturnarium's channel. You need to watch this VR that she did. I love everything she said. I will of course link it, and she is responding to James Feeney, who started the hashtag. I just discovered his channel and I really like him. Of course, I'm gonna link his original video below. So this is the reader I am, and it is a little interview. I love interview hashtags about just how I am as a tarot reader and what kind of tarot reading that I do. So the first question is, what is the primary system of divination you use, as specific as possible? I use tarot cards primarily, or just speaking directly to my guides in meditation or journeys or things like that, but primarily tarot cards. And I'm a Rider-Waite gal, diehard Rider-Waite gal. I really don't like pip decks. Thoth has never really been too chatty with me. So I use Rider-Waite decks. Some decks I have are not weight-based, but I still have a connection to them. I do not care for most oracle decks. Once in a great while, I will pull out a pendulum for a yes-no question. And yeah, so Rider-Waite Smith Tarot. But I forgot the second question, so I'm going to answer it. And I'm gonna splice it, dice it, and chop it up and insert it through the magic of my extremely basic editing skills. As an aside, I'm looking to up my editing game. What editing software do you use? Okay, I like inexpensive, and by inexpensive, I mean free. Okay, let me know. But the question is, who do you read for? Primarily, I read for myself. That's my daily readings. I tend to avoid problems that I'm doing. For some reason, I tend to avoid giving myself tarot readings because I think it's like a resistance kind of thing. But I do, but I avoid it. But I do daily draws all the time. I like to do yoga with my daily draw at the top of my mat, so I think about it when I do yoga. I do read for others. I do read for friends, but I am very picky about how often I will do that, because I have had a friend or two start, you know that thing where every time they call, they work it into the conversation. I tend to stomp that out like immediately. But I do read for other people. I don't have a tarot business because I just, during the school year, do not have the time that I would need to devote to it. I could do it during the summer, but I don't right now see it getting to where I'm having a tarot business where I rely on it for my income. To me, that seems stressful. So anyway, mostly for myself, but yes, I read for others. What types of readings do you normally do? Topics, spreads, time, mediums. I do not, absolutely not. I'm just making myself a note because I wanted to say something for the last question. I do not do mediumship readings. I have a couple of times had someone come through that I do not think was a dead relative. I think it was just some sort of guide or something, but if you've seen my boundary videos, I have pretty strict boundaries about how I connect with what, and I tend not to break those. So I'm not going to speak to anyone who's passed over, although I might do a reading for you about how to deal with certain feelings or things like that. I don't do time readings as in, when is my house going to sell, or when is something going to happen. I might do near past, near future, in the next season or a few months. I might ask the cards, what would this look like in 6 months? What would this look like in a year? but I don't look ahead too much further than that. I usually use spreads if I'm doing a more involved reading for myself, but when I read for other people, I don't usually use spreads. There might be one or two go-tos that sometimes I will use, but I just throw the cards the way that I feel like they need to be laid down. So maybe someone needs help making a decision. I will usually have 2 rows of cards. I will usually say, I want you to pick 3 cards. This is going to mean this, and this is going to mean this. So I kind of make up a spread on the fly, but I don't usually do prepared spreads when I read for other people, and that's just always how I've read. What is your reading style? For example, analytic, intuitive, spiritual, predictive, or fortune telling. I definitely don't consider myself a fortune teller because I feel like in my mind, fortune telling means you're dodging your free will. Of course, all tarot readings can be somewhat predictive. All things being equal, if you stay doing things the way you are now, what might this look like in a few months? But I do think that anything the cards tell you, you can work with, and you can change it or at least mitigate an outcome that you don't care for. I would call myself an intuitive tarot reader. I do call myself an intuitive tarot reader. When I read for myself, definitely I have a lot of spiritual questions and I'm working on that level, but I call myself an intuitive tarot reader. And what that means is not necessarily that I pick up a card and say, ooh, that's a good one. I don't necessarily pick up a card and just kind of describe what I see without studying the card. I base my interpretation in a foundation of traditional meaning that I have studied. So I have studied the cards for many years, and that's the foundation of knowledge. But of course, with each card, there's a whole range of meaning. Jean Fiorini says every card has 180 degrees of meaning, or 360 degrees of meaning. 360 degrees of meaning. That's much deeper. I'm going to go with that. Every card has an entire spectrum of meaning, and so which meaning I go to is just based on what comes into my mind, what my intuition tells me. Especially with reversals, there are so many possibilities for reversals that I just have to go with my intuition. What is your ideal reading atmosphere? Well, I personally do not really care for reading in public. And by in public, I mean like at a fair, a psychic fair or something like that. I have done that, but I find it a little bit stressful because for me, a tarot reading is a private event. And so my ideal atmosphere is in a place where I feel comfortable, either, in my home, first of all, or if the querent is someone I know, maybe in their home if I'm comfortable there, or I will meet them, like I've done readings at the library. Let's just meet at the library because they have quiet study rooms and it's out of the way. I don't mind reading in crowded places or noisy places as long as the place I'm reading is out of the way and I don't have spectators and hangers on, if that makes any sense. I do like ambiance. There is something to be said for setting the mood. Maybe it's my Catholic upbringing. I love, a certain amount of pomp and circumstance. I love to go into a chapel and it's dark and it's stained glass and you light a candle and it just puts you in that place, in that frame of mind. And so when possible, I like to have my surroundings be not in a Starbucks somewhere. But I have read like plenty in coffee shops, and sometimes it's totally fine. Let's see, where am I? Reversals, jumpers, shuffling style, yes, yes, yes. My shuffling style is overhand, like so. I think there was a hashtag going around, show me your shuffle. That was maybe in the summer. And I overhand shuffle. This deck, my Radiant Wise Spirit, I have just recently started shuffling like this for some reason. I don't know why, I was just messing around with it and absent-mindedly shuffling like that. I don't like a riffle shuffle. And that goes back to the atmosphere. It's just, when someone riffle shuffles, it takes me right out of like that kind of, you know, tarot reading mood. You know that one relative who's gonna show up to your formal wedding wearing jeans? It's like that. It's like jeans at the black tie wedding. It just, and I know lots of people riffle shuffle, and I'm not hating on riffle shuffling. I just, to me, it's just something I do with playing cards and not tarot cards. So it kind of doesn't go with what I'm thinking, if that makes any sense. Reversals, I do read reversals sometimes. There are lots of possibilities that reversals can mean, and this is where intuitive reading comes in. You use your intuition to, you know, decide what kind of reversal this is. So sometimes a card will come up in a reading reversed. This one actually came up reversed, and I won't pay any attention to it. I'll be like, yeah, I just don't feel like, you know, is it reversed? Is it not? I don't care. So I will read it right side up, because you don't really need reversals if the card has a whole spectrum of meaning. You could get an opposite meaning or a shadow meaning or a not yet kind of a feeling, even if the card is not reversed. I don't worry too much about reversals. I've gone through the whole like head game with reversals and am I reading this correctly and what could it mean? I do not have an entire lexicon of reversed meanings the way I do for the 78 tarot cards. Reversed meanings, I just go straight to using intuition. Jumpers, yes. When a card flies out of the deck, I usually, and Saturnarium said this, that the way she always does that is she saves that for the outcome card or the last card. And I find that I have done that a lot too. Especially for someone else, if I'm shuffling and a card flies out when I'm shuffling, I'll be like, let's just put this aside and come back to it later. Or I might use it as the initial card, like, oh, this is what it really wants to say starting out. So I do reversals, jumpers, overhand shuffling. What is your delivery tone? Constructive, positive, reflective, action-oriented. All of the above. I really want to give empowering readings. I almost always give a homework card or something to do, even if it's, here's a mantra that you can say. Here's what your guides want you to know when you're feeling doubtful. Here's something that you should look for. Here's your next step. I really like action, empowering readings. Like, if you don't like the outcome, here's how you can change it. Here's how you can make the most of this. Something that puts the querent in control of their own situation. I do like to keep it positive which is not to say that I don't give difficult information, but like I said, I think the cards are only giving you difficult information to validate you and to help guide you through that. So if there is something difficult, that's when I will for sure, the next card I pick is, what can we do about this? Or how can we make this easier? Or what can I get out of this? So it's not just like, it's the tower, life sucks, you know, it's finding a bigger meaning and finding the silver lining, which is very difficult sometimes. What are reflective? I would say my daily draws are very reflective. What are some of your personal reading quirks? For example, correspondences you tend to draw on, habits you have, little details that you alone use and have. I'm going to talk about correspondences, but I never ever, me personally, do not use tarot for yes/no answers, yes/no questions. I just don't think it lends itself to yes/no questions. I think yes/no questions don't yield very much information, and open-ended questions are best. So I don't ever use my cards for that. I don't like what I call novelty readings. And you know, sometimes like people want you to read at a Halloween party or something, and there's always a crowd of people and they didn't really expect to get a reading. They're just there because it's paid for and they're like, what the heck, it'll be fun. To me, I don't like doing those because I feel like remember in the 90s when the thing was to get a hypnotist to come to parties and, you know, make people cluck like chickens and other such shit? Well, I think things come up in a tarot reading that are highly personal, and that the person on the other end, if they weren't planning this, might not be ready to deal with. And so it's almost like those kinds of readings, you have to keep it light. And my son's elementary school has a fall festival, and the PE coach was the fortune teller, and he would look at your palm, and you'd pay like 2 tickets, and he'd go, okay, here's your candy line, you're gonna get lots of candy. You know, here's your homework line, you're gonna study and get good grades. And I feel almost like those kinds of tarot party readings, you can get really good readings, but it's always awkward when someone gets a little too personal, and there are always people milling around and they want to kind of watch, and it's just not the kind of reading I do. I mean, sometimes it's fun, but you got to keep it light. I don't know. That's just one of my quirks. What's another one of my quirks? I don't know, but the correspondences I tend to look for when I do a spread or have a bunch of cards in front of me, I always look for colors. I do look for cards facing each other or not facing each other. I look for numbers. Are there lots of a certain number? Are there many court cards? Are there lots of majors? Are there lots of reversals? And I go through all of that. People talk about making the reading into a story, and I think what that means, I don't make it into a story, but I do try to connect every card. There should be a thread that runs through every card, and almost always I connect all of the cards back to where we started with the first card that I drew. So instead of reading every position separately, I try to connect all of the cards together. And one way to do that is by looking at what the cards have in common. And sometimes what you notice is there's a lack of something. You know, there are no water cards, or there is an overabundance. It's all water. those are scary readings. Or, you know, all these cards are reversed, or you have no court cards, or things like that. So, you know, this guy, sometimes I'll even say, oh, look, this guy in the card looks like this guy. Oh my God. So, anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent. I hope that's okay. I really loved this hashtag, so thank you, James. Thank you, Saturnarium. Their responses are so interesting. I really enjoyed listening to them and getting to know them as tarot readers. And make sure you like or subscribe, leave me a comment, and I really appreciate everyone watching. Thank you, guys.